Hey friends, welcome to this week's episode of Not Your Mama's Podcast. The title of this episode is Nourish Your Life for Long-Term Fulfillment. In this episode, I'm so excited. We are speaking with Wendy Bright-Fallon and Debbie Peterson, who are National Board Certified Health and Wellness Coaches located in Red Bank, New Jersey. They are inspirational speakers, podcasters, and cookbook authors, and we're so excited to have them on to talk about how to nourish our lives. So Debbie and Wendy, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. I'm really excited to dive into today's topic. So before we get started, can you let the audience know a little bit about your background and how you started this wonderful community that you have?
Sure.
Yeah, I'll go first. This is Wendy. Thank you so much for having us on, Christina. Really appreciate being able to reach out to your audience. Short story for me is I was in corporate America for 15 years, got the burnout, and found myself asking myself what nourishes me. You know, that probably wasn't my question then. It is my question now. But I really needed to pick myself up. And so I found a yoga studio that talked about eating real whole food and nourishment. And then I went to school, and Debbie and I met at school, and we've got similar paths. Debbie?
Yeah, similar paths after that point.
Right,
Before that,
right.
very different. Yeah, so yeah, our paths very different in that I grew up pretty health-minded. My mother's very health-minded, so I grew up that way and found myself starting my career as a teacher of college English, and that's where I was going. I was also working in a library for a literacy program, and found myself trying to get pregnant and not being able to. And luckily, I had a lot of time to go up to the stacks in the library, for people who know what that is. That's where all the books are. And I was looking in the health section and found the term holistic health for the first time, and started saying, okay, well, I'm not getting pregnant even though I'm healthy. What's going on? And started my path on that holistic health type things, which is eating real whole foods and acupuncture and meditation and everything along the lines. And soon enough, thankfully, I did get pregnant. And then it was on my quest, of course, to have the healthiest kids in the world. And so that was my new path. I said, okay, now that I have the two kids I've always wanted, now it's time to make them the most healthy that they can be. And now they're in their 20s and super healthy, and thankfully because of my path. But I went to school also because it turned out to be a passion of mine. So I was just like learning more and more about health, and said, you know what, I got to do something more with this. And so that's where Wendy and I met at the school that turned us into health coaches. So.
No, that's awesome. What a beautiful story. I know we have to realize that there's always an alternative route to just doing Western medicine to fulfill like the diseases we have in our life or the problems with getting pregnant. Like, it's really important to open up our minds and look at the alternative health options that we have out there, because it's probably even healthier for you when you do the holistic route. So my question to you ladies is, what is a certified health and wellness coach, and how is that different from a nutritionist?
Yeah, we get that question a lot, actually, because the title health and wellness coach is pretty new in our field. It's new. It's been around about 20 years. And so one of the things that you just said, which is very interesting, and I'll parallel it, is that a health and wellness coach walks with the person. They're side by side, they're knee to knee. And the health coach's purpose is to help uncover the path that's right for that person. And our traditional method is top down. Someone else has the answers, someone else tells you what to do. And there's not a right or wrong, and we need a little bit of both. And so our role is to help balance those two roles and really walk beside the person and help them figure out what's right for them. Because each one of us, there are some basic tenets we need. I think we're going to talk about those, but we're all so different. We want to honor that. And my neighbor's path or my mom's path or my sister's path might be different. And so a health coach is the one who helps step in and help with that. And it's also for long term. We're not quick fix. We're not your quick fixers.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
normally those things are like, you have to commit to it every day and like give yourself that promise that, you know, you're going to make this commitment to yourself. You're going to eat better. You're going to follow the guidelines and things like that. It's not a quick fix, but like slow and steady wins the race is how I look at it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's sort of like we want to be a part of your wellness team, I guess you'd say. It's sort of like, if you can look at as an example, professional athletes, they have a team of people who are taking care of them to be the best athlete that they can. It's not just, they have their coach for sure. That's their head coach. And that's, you know, the kind of the role that we take, but they have their physio, they have their psychologist, they have their, you know, their nutritionist, they have everybody that kind of makes them do, helps them become who they are. They do all the work. The athlete does all the work. Our clients do all the work, but we are there to coach them and hold them accountable and guide them through and help them discover what really works for them by offering suggestions or reflections on what we see.
Mm-hmm.
And just to kind of follow up on the question part of it, what makes us certified is that kind of the difference between us and nutritionists is we actually took a board certification exam to become board certified. And that separates us from a lot of people who call themselves coaches. And it's not that we're better than they are or anything like that. It's just that we did a lot of the work so that we could have that certification, because there's a certain amount of training that goes into coaching how we coach.
Yeah.
And so that's important to us that we can use the psychology behind it and do it in a way that is really effective. Nutritionists are really about food and the science behind food and how it works with people's bodies and their lifestyles. So we do a lot of what nutritionists do, but we're not experts on the science of food. You know? So that's the other part. We know a lot about it, but we're not trained in nutrition.
That's right.
Perfect. So what are the Nourish Coaches 5 foundations of health, and how do you use them with your clients?
Yeah, so the 5 foundations, and this is the interesting part, is because when Debbie and I met at school, a lot of what we studied was the different kinds of food plans out there, and that was one of the tenets. But soon as we started practicing with clients and seeing clients, we saw that it wasn't just food isn't going to heal everything, really, is what we found out right away. And so over time, Debbie and I created the 5 foundations of health, and they are nutrition, sleep, movement, mindset, and connection. And let's riff on them just a little bit, Debbie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, nutrition doesn't need a whole lot of explanation. It's all about eating real whole foods as much as possible. We talked about the 80-20 rule, but that meaning try to do your best with eating the most nutrient dense foods 80% of the time, or maybe 90% of the time, or 95% of the time. But there's got to be a balance and some flexibility there. And the idea is to try to do the best you can by avoiding packaged, processed, refined foods and artificial colors, flavors, preservatives, because those don't communicate well with our body's chemistry. It's just something that doesn't really work for most people if you have too much of it. So
yeah. And sleep and movement are all of them are so married. You know, these 5 tenets that we have are just every one literally feeds the other or shrinks the other, right? And so we all know that we compromise our sleep. And so part of our work is to uncover habits that might be serving or not serving, both in sleep and movement. And we're very conscious about choosing the word movement over exercise, because some people don't like that word exercise. Debbie is one of them. But it's just finding what works for us. And that's the beauty of having a coach help you, is that maybe the gym isn't right for you. Maybe you've never stepped in a gym because it was intimidating, and our job is to help you break through that intimidation. And so those kind of go together. The 4th one is mindset. And Debbie, you want to talk about that? That's a cornerstone for us.
Right. it's a cornerstone and an umbrella over everything, because having a healthy mindset, I guess you'd say, it if you don't have a healthy mindset, if you have a mindset that is limiting, or if you have a mindset that you're always beating yourself up, it doesn't matter how well you eat or how much sleep you have. It's your health is going to be affected by not having a mindset that really drives you forward. And so mindset is behind all of our tenets. You know, it's the foundation of our foundations, because you need to have a growth mindset to move forward and to be resilient and to be strong and to get you through those tough moments and to bounce back and to keep you on your path. So mindset really covers pretty much everything.
And then our fifth one is connection. And we added that but before the pandemic, actually, we added it several years ago because we realized that the community we were actually creating really did feed it on each other. And when we work with people, sometimes it's one-on-one, but we facilitate groups. And that is just a beautiful connection when there are like-minded people. We don't feel alone, you know, when we're connected. And so there are many ways of connection with yourself, with nature, with other people, with animals, with the trees. So that's our fifth foundation.
No, I love all those foundations. And I think that they're also important. And I think for me, that the most important one is the mental, because if your head's not right, there's no way you're going to be able to achieve all of the other four or reach your goals. You know, it's all about your perspective. And I feel like the mind is the hardest thing to conquer. And when we're not right in our mind, it does show up in our bodies. Like we'll have gut issues or back pain issues, wherever it'll show up, inflammation in the hands or wherever. And it's so important to have like a clear mindset. So I like that you guys help clients focus on that, because if you're not clear in your mind, you're not going to be able to reach all the other four. You know, you might have a hard time sleeping because your mind's going crazy, hard time staying focused on your commitment for your nutritional food. And having that movement in your body, like staying committed to moving your body every day. So I was glad to hear that you guys have the mental part locked and loaded in your 5 foundations. So when we talk about diet culture mentality, why is it important to think differently about health and wellness when it comes to the diet culture?
Yeah, so diet culture is it's pretty much embedded in all of us, and it's been there. It hasn't been there that long, to be honest. You know, it's probably the last maybe 50, 60 years that it really kicked in, when people started paying attention to nutrients in foods instead of just food. That's where it started. But then it became it's kind of everywhere. It's how we look at food as a moral decision. You know, food is good or bad. Or I am bad because I ate this, or I didn't eat this. It's all about judgment of a person or a food in a way that it doesn't make really any sense. I go back to, like, what would my grandmother think of that? You know, it's just, you just eat food. Food is food, you know? So it doesn't matter what it is. It's how do you feel? If you eat that food, if you don't feel good, then don't eat the food anymore. It's not that the food is bad. But it really gets into our culture and gets into us because we feel shame around our decisions around food, or it's not just food. It's about exercising. Oh, I didn't exercise this week, I'm bad. You know, and how we judge other people, how things are marketed. It's funny, we always riff on that ice cream that's called Halo. It's just, you know, it's out there on all kinds of products, skinny popcorn, you know, these ideas that aren't real, to be honest.
Yeah.
And to, you know, it's for us, it's important to get our clients back to reality and what is true and authentic, not the societal ideal and morals surrounding all these things that aren't really there.
And that is exactly where a huge part of the mindset goes, is the language that we're speaking to ourselves, to our family, to our children, to our spouses, and trying to trying to remove that and just notice our language. And it's amazing. Debbie and I have been coaching for over 14 years now, and we still find it in our own writing and in some of our old podcasts and some of our, in our cookbook. And so we're also still untangling some of that language. And that's why we're, the title of, our company is Nourish Coaches, not the right way to eat coaches.
Clean eating coaches. Yeah.
Right. So there has to be, that's where the going inside and saying, what's right for me? What's the right time for me to go to bed? In this point in my life, in this moment, wherever you are as a mom to be, a mom in transition, father in transition, that sort of thing. So yeah, meeting people where they are.
Hey friends, I hope you are enjoying this week's episode of Not Your Mama's podcast. This podcast would not be possible if it wasn't for the support of you, my wonderful community. To support Your Mama's podcast, please click the support link right down below, and you can donate just as little as 99 cents. Also, follow me in the Shop Like to Know It app, where you can follow me with all my exclusive content, all the way from baby products I love, fashion and style, and everything in between. Now let's get back to the episode. Yeah, no, you have to really customize someone to where they are in their life at the moment. Like you mentioned, the good thing, like mom to be, a new mom, a mom in transition. It is really important. Even dad, like a dad in transition, a new dad, and how to balance work life, parenting, and because I know when I had my son, it really knocked me off my feet, my first one. I'm like, how do I manage this? I can't get the house clean and do all these things. I felt really lost. And it's I have to figure out a way to balance it all and what's going to be good for me. How can I fit in my body movement? How can I get the most sleep that I can? And you have to really assess and change what you were used to what you're living now. So how do you help your clients kind of shift habits and establish those long-term nourishing lifestyles?
Yeah.
No,
go ahead. We both have something to say. Well, one way is to help them simply witness what's going on. We become very detached and we just kind of get on the hamster wheel and go, and we don't notice. So it's really not just doing the laser focus work, but it's doing the broad scope work. It's the spotlight on the life and really assessing what's nourishing you and what's not, and naming it, actually putting everything out on the table and say, what's the day look like? And where are you, sprinkling in joy, and where is it not? And what do you have control over and what do you not have control over? Mm-hmm. And then let's play with your real life, not somebody else's life, but that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's getting clients to turn into themselves, because we are an externally motivated society. We always look on the outside for answers and for advice. We're always, and that's how our society operates. It's constant now, even more than ever, constant giving us information and people having to sort through it. But really, it's very overwhelming, especially new moms. It's I remember that, of all the information coming at me from all different directions. And when it comes down to it, honestly, then and now that I'm a mom of adult kids, it all comes down to what is right here. The intuition is always right. And I remember older women telling me that and not really believing it until I had to prove it to myself. But over and over again, it is true. And it's not just true for being a mom. It's true for most of your life. It's that what feels right and what is right in here. Because nobody knows you the way you do, the way you react to things. And so it's a matter of what works for you, because I can tell you what to eat. I can tell you how to exercise. I can tell you need 8 hours of sleep, but that might not be true for you. I don't know, So it's redirecting people's attention away from all of the chatter out there and saying, you don't have to shut it out, you might listen to it, but understand that it might not work for you. So question everything. That's one of our biggest messages for our clients is question everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And it's true.
And stay curious.
Yeah, those are very important. And then I also like that you mentioned like what's going on inside in your heart and your body, because like you had mentioned, so much information is coming at us. We're asking all these other people for their opinions and what they think, but really what matters is what's inside and how does your body feel when you ask that question? What's coming for you? And we kind of forget about that. We're so bombarded with television, social media, like acceptance and blah, 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 blah. You know, the list can go on, but we forget to just sit with ourselves for that moment and just what is going on inside? Like, what do we really need? Like, listen to the body. We neglect it quite often. And people forget, and then they don't trust themselves, you know, and trust in that intuition. And then you learn the hard way, like, damn it, I knew I should have done it that way. I told myself that, and I didn't listen to myself. So it's having that trust. And, you know, I'm still learning that too. It's like recently I'm like, I think my son has an ear infection, but then I just like totally pushed it aside, took him to the doctor. Lo and behold, he had an ear infection. Poor kid, who knows for how long. But, you know, it's just those little things. Well, he wasn't like grabbing his ear or anything like that. So, but I just kind of had a feeling, but then he wasn't really showing the regular symptoms of like what an ear infection would be like for a baby. So I don't know. Anyway, but it's just listening to that intuition and trusting yourself.
Yep. And that takes practice because we've been conditioned to look outside for the answer. We've just been conditioned. And that I think we need to gift ourselves some grace in that shift from looking outside and then moving inside, and not have criticism of ourselves for looking outside for things. We've all been there, done that, and let's just come full circle and come back to ourselves. And that's, when it happens with our clients, it's a really beautiful thing, but we need to practice it. We need to practice tapping into the intuition. It's not just going to happen like that.
Totally. It's definitely practice. Slow and steady wins the race, right?
That's right.
So I have questions to ask you, ladies. I'm really excited to dive into them and get your answers. So my first question is, who and what inspires you? Wendy, you can go first.
Okay, who and what inspires me? Well, lots of people, but I'll just go to my husband first because he's my trainer, my personal trainer, and he's the kind of person who does it anyway. When it's hard, he does it anyway, and he's very much a good example of someone who has habits to reach his end goal, and longevity is the thing. And so planting the flag there. So he's one of my inspirations.
Yeah. And I know Wendy would agree with me. I think one of the biggest things that inspires me is our clients, for sure. But to make it a little bit more personal, I have to say both my mother and my daughter inspire me, and for kind of the same reasons. They're on the opposite ends of the spectrum in age-wise, but they're both so wise in so many ways, and they're letting me see different angles of truth. And it's just really inspiring to see this in my newly minted adult daughter and my mother who recently is retired and doing some really neat things. So
awesome. So what is something that you wished you knew when you were younger? And Debbie, we can start with you this time.
So much. So much. I think though, if I have to give one answer right now, I wish that I knew to do strength training when I was younger. That's something I picked up probably about 10 years ago. And I wished that I was a runner and I ran, which is great cardio, of course, some good muscles, but I really wished that I knew to do a lot more with my body as far as that goes in strength training. And I probably would have avoided some injuries that I've had. So.
And I would have wished that I had looked more long-term instead of, I mean, we've taught, Debbie and I talk about these two people we have inside of us, our current self and our future self, and they're often fighting each other. The current self wants the instant gratification or the thing right now. And as a younger self, I wished I'd thought long-term more, because as I age, I want to continue to do stuff. That's my tenet. I want to do stuff forever.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Wendy. I wish that I looked more long-term instead of like, kind of like where I'm at and like the lack of, so. Okay, so the third question is, what's the essential part of your daily routine? And Wendy, we can start with you.
That's so interesting. My husband and I were talking about this the other day, and I think for me, it's essential for me to have the real food. It's essential for me. Food, I think, would be one of my number one, and learning, growth work is like always there, but food would probably be it. My husband would say exercise. So we're all different. Yeah.
Yeah. I've actually combined two of my everyday routines in that I drink my hot water, and it's cold here in New Jersey right now. So I drink my thermos of hot water while I'm taking a walk in the morning. And so that's something I do. I try to do every single day. And I finish that 20-ounce thermos of hot water and I get my walking in. And so if I don't train that day, at least I had that walk. I'm moving every single day.
No, perfect. I love that. Okay. And so my last question for you guys, ladies, actually, what's the best advice you've ever received? And Debbie, we can start with you.
I think that there's so much. It's hard to choose of all the advice. And a lot of it is around my kids, I guess you'd say. So I think I'll turn towards that, especially considering our audience here, is I think the best advice I got was to let go and allow my kids to experience and learn without doing things for them, without telling them the right thing to do all the time. And similar to my coaching process, it's more of being a guide and a coach to my kids than being that authority figure that was saying, you got to do it this way. Mm-hmm. And I think that now that I'm on the other end of this with kids in college, I'm seeing the benefits of me letting go and letting them flourish and be who they are, and respecting them as kids, really respecting them. And so they respected me, and we have a really good relationship because of that. So
that's great. That's great advice. Wendy?
I think the best advice that I've been studying actually is keep growing, keep learning, know that your life is continuing to unfold always, and that this longevity, this journey of a lifetime, just keep being curious and growing with it, and knowing that you're going to keep unfolding and blossoming, and not staying stuck where you are. Just have a growth mindset.
Perfect. Well, Debbie and Wendy, thank you so much for coming on this week's episode of Not Your Mama's podcast. All of their links are down below in the show notes. Don't be shy. Go say hi. If you want to nourish your life, have some accountability, and some women who know what they're talking about to move you to that 2.0 version of you, I highly suggest to click the links down below. And thank you for listening to this week's episode of Not Your Mama's podcast. And I hope to see you all in the next one. Thanks, guys.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Not Your Mama's podcast. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. We really appreciate it, and we'll see you in the next one.